Welcome back, everybody, to the Leadership Lens. Our next guest is a dynamic entrepreneur and operational leader who specializes in building technology and community infrastructure for modern families. She is the founder and CEO of SNPT, a patent-pending consumer technology company that is revolutionizing how households manage grocery spending and capture retail value. Prior to launching SNPT, she spent over a decade leading high performing teams and scaling a logistics firm. Driven by deep commitment and social impact, she's also the founder of the Billionaire Learning Academy and Knowledge Center, a nonprofit dedicated to empowering youth, families, and emerging entrepreneurs through education and mentorship. So, thank you very much for giving us your time today, Dina. How are things going today?
Really, really good and really happy to be here, Taylor. Thank you so much for the glowing introduction. I really appreciate that.
Well, I always like to ask people if I got everything kind of correct in there. I take it on myself to write these summaries, and I'm not always exactly right, but I tend to get pretty close. Anything wrong in
No,
there?
you spot on, spot on. I'm very impressed. So thanks, Taylor, for that.
Awesome, good stuff. Well, Dina, maybe to kind of help set the stage a little bit here for the viewership, tell us a little bit more about SNP. I kind of introduced it, but it's a little bit vague, I guess. So, what does the application do? How does it help people? Just a little bit about it.
So I'm so glad that you asked. SNP is a technology that is intended to help families really combat some of the concerns that we're having at the grocery line, right? Anybody, whether you're a celebrity or whether you're a mom or dad, everyone's feeling the grocery pain, and SNP is hopefully helping to provide the answer to some of those pains. So the biggest piece, and something that I was able to very quickly identify is a lot of the times we have apps out there. There's coupons, there's rebates, there's all these different, apps that you could use, but nothing really pays attention to the budget. And so oftentimes when you go into the store, you might or may not have a strategic plan when you are shopping. And uh, when you get to the checkout line, guess what ends up happening? You're way over budget. You didn't get all the things that you hoped to get. And then you're still having to figure out what's for dinner and trying to piece together what you did buy. And hopefully that you'll be able to, provide a solid plan for the rest of the week. So SNP is really helping consumers shop smarter without the mental overload of having to figure out, okay, what do I need? What don't I need? We, help you navigate through that without having to change what you do currently. So, if you like to eat out, great. We'll give you a plan that includes eating out. If you like to, make everything home cooked or you love frozen meals, we'll make sure that we address your household needs based on your specific preferences. So it really does. I guess that's high, overview of what SNP does. But the intention is really to help consumers and families stay within their budget without having to compromise where they like to shop, what they like to eat, but really meeting them where they are.
hmm hmm So, does it integrate at all with the? You mentioned kind of coupons and stuff. Is that a piece of it, or is that on the individual, and this is kind of more focused on um, the budgeting aspect
So,
of it?
so the neat part of SNP is we include everything. So nothing's off the table, I guess you would say. It aggregates a lot of the information that is entered, as you're going through your process. And then it gives you, an outline based on, all the information that was entered during onboarding. So, we try to use things like I don't know, where you like to eat normally, right? Like if you're a shopper at, your local supermarket, okay, we'll utilize that information to find something that fits exactly what it is you're looking to or things that your things that your household eats or uses on a day-to-day basis. A lot of the information tailored in full transparency is still patent pending, so I'm limited on what I'm able to go into in terms of detail. But for sure, that is a consideration that is a part of the process.
Yeah. Well, I could definitely use it. I would say that spending money is very easy for me. It's the not spending it that's kind of the more difficult part,
Mhm.
especially. If I'm just hungry and I go to the grocery store, then it's no, then it's all over. Then everything is good and I need to buy.
Taylor, I'm going to share with you. I was doing customer discovery, and I had one customer that said they had a bad day at work and they went to the store and bought like 10 packs of yogurt for absolutely no reason at all. So we're going to try to help you not do that. Okay. Not that yogurt is a
Uh,
bad thing for you, but, that's the intention is we want to be sure that, when we're going there, we're having a productive visit. At the grocery store, and it's not detrimental to what your budget and needs are for your household.
mhm,
I think, something, and this really came up from a conversation I was having with one of my co-founder at the time, and just trying to find a simpler way to, meet people where they are, not put them in a box, but also help them have more of a guided pathway to help ensure that they are, staying in budget and saving and still walking out with enough food to last until the next time they have to shop, you know?
mhm. Yeah, understood. Well, there's some patent pending things going on. We won't get into too much of the nitty gritty, but I think the viewership has got the gist of what we're kind of talking about here. So let's talk about how you build one of these things. I mean, I've certainly never built an app. Um, I'm messing around with Claude quite a bit, but very basic stuff. I mean, you're just what you're building is something that I don't have intimate knowledge of. I've helped
Yeah.
place and recruit professionals who build these things, but I certainly haven't done it myself. So when it comes to putting a team together that's capable of even getting this type of work accomplished, where do you start? What types of folks do you need to bring on board?
So that's a really great question. I think before you start, right, getting people on board is you really do have to have an idea of what the vision is, right? And exactly what it is that you're needing to have built, because in the process of building and even just my business acumen along the way, every position has a different role and responsibility. But without adequately knowing what you're going to build, how it's going to function, the architecture behind it, you could find yourself hiring the wrong role depending on, what it is you're looking to do. So the first step is really identify what is it that you're building, right? And then who is I guess, the highest priority when it comes to the output. A lot of the times as, founders or even business owners, we are the visionaries, right? So we understand like how we want it to perform and we have all these great ideas, but being able to articulate that in a way that translates to a job description or a specific role, I think is going to be very critical in terms of identifying the right team member to join the team.
Hmm. Hmm. So I get all that, very much so in my job, my business, and everything else. But the other part of that then is the selection. So what do we need to get done? What type of background would bring the most value to that? Who's going to just straight up have the capability to
Yeah.
execute this type of work? But then you get into the selection when you've got several people that maybe can do this type of work, and you
Mhm.
interview and you try and decide who the right one might be. What types of folks do you like to hire? How do you go through your interviewing to make sure that you're getting the right information out?
So that's a good question. For us, we have a few different layers that are included in our hiring process. As with most organizations, right? You're going to do that initial screening. And then to your point, once you get your baseline of, okay, these are the qualified candidates that we have, usually we may have like a project that we have them, explain or I've had certain instances where they've done presentations on, we give them a specific, I guess, task that we'd like for them to address. And then during our panel interview process, we'll have them break down, okay, this is how they would address whatever that topic is. So you do have to, again, it's going to be based on who you're hiring and what you're hiring them to do. Also, what's going to be very important is that you do have someone that the technical acumen, like in this case, if we're talking about apps, You probably would want to have someone in that panel interview to ask some of those questions,
Hmm.
because there are just certain, processes, certain details that you'll only know if you're working with the technology on a day to day basis.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, we live in a world where I've seen cases where people use AI as part of their interviewing process, where like they give the answers, while you're talking with them. So you do have to make sure that also during that you're asking questions that aren't easily answered by AI, and it actually takes a human to have that detail and knowledge to answer it in a way that's clear and concise. Because I have seen cases where I ask certain questions and I phrase it in a way that it confuses AI, but if you know what you're talking about, you'll know exactly how to answer it. And that just I don't know if you've encountered that before, Taylor, or not in your
I
house.
have not a crazy amount.
Hmm.
The more the more technologically advanced the individual, the more likely they are to use AI in the interview process. Is kind of
Hmm.
what I've found, and maybe not technologically advanced, but if you're interviewing someone in HR or operations or
Hmm.
finance or whatever, the likelihood that they're going to be using AI to answer the questions is pretty low. But I
Right.
think IT professionals feel more comfortable using it. And
Yeah,
also to your point about the technical questions, if they might not know the answer, then they'd rather use AI. And honestly, sometimes through the interview process, the best answer that I get from a candidate is, I don't know. And
I
that's
agree.
a human answer that is honest and real. And if
Yeah,
you don't know, I'd rather you say I don't know
yeah,
than try and make something up or act like you do know, but you get it
right.
wrong. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Like,
Mhm,
why? If you don't know what you're talking about, just stop talking and just tell me you don't know what you're talking about. That's fine. It's
mhm.
totally fine. It's
Yeah.
okay.
No, and I
So,
agree with that. Like I can respect the I don't know answer, or, can you give me additional details? Maybe dig in a little bit deeper. But if I were to be completely transparent, that would be, the process that I would follow. Like if I were to give someone advice, I would say, do your screening, make sure that you understand, well, before you start your screening, that you understand exactly who will fit what you're looking for, but then make sure that you're asking those technical questions that really address what your intention is for your application, because the output is what really is going to measure your success in terms of your app.
yeah. Um, the other thing, and this knife cuts both ways. So if you're a candidate and you're interviewing and you're using AI, obviously it's really not ethical. For one thing, and two, you're going to sound weird, and people are going to know.
Mhm,
But on the other end of it too, I have hiring teams and managers that I work with who use AI to come up with their questions that they're going to ask the person,
mhm,
which can be okay.
mhm,
Um, but when it gets to a question, there's zero flow to how those build off of one another.
mhm.
You're obviously reading these things from a Word profile or got written down or something. But if they're not based in true necessity for the role,
Mhm,
or you're not building off of the candidate's answer,
mhm.
then it feels very robotic. And the candidates are also interviewing the hiring team. They don't
Right.
have to accept an offer,
Mhm.
and they don't have to stay in the interview process. And that happens all the time. And I have had hiring teams, and I've gotten the feedback from the candidates, and they go, "Yeah, it was okay. It just like I could have just basically got an email with the list of questions and done it. Like there was zero back and forth. When I gave an answer, there wasn't that, tell me a little bit more, how do you do that type of thing." And it's very much a turnoff for the candidates as well. So both sides need to be.
I completely agree with you. I was literally just talking to my co-founder yesterday, and when we have an experience, whether it's with the application or with hiring or what, all of that, has an impact on our brand reputation, right? And to your point, if it feels very robotic, unauthentic, I don't, if I'm assessing you as a candidate, also going to consider that, like, okay, do we have any authenticity or originality, or what does the culture look like if we just have this static list of questions that really feels like you could ask anyone? So I think you brought
Mhm.
a great point up of making sure that the questions are relevant, number one, to the role that you're asking. And then secondly, that you're able to ask those follow-up questions that allow you to walk away with a deeper understanding of, their knowledge, and opposite on the other end of our knowledge, of the organization. So yeah, I think it's
Mhm.
spot on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I often have candidates ask me, any tips, any tips you got for me? And I try not to coach people up too much. And to your point about authenticity, I think a lot of people in my position tell candidates what they're going to get asked, what they should say, and pretty much just make them who the client, hiring team wants to
Hmm.
to see.
Yeah.
I mean, that's okay. I don't believe in that. I'd rather you see the real person and then last in the role. But the feedback and direction that I give, no matter the level of the person, no matter the function, no matter the hiring team, no matter the anything, the one thing that I always give to everybody is if you get asked a question and you answer that question, it's okay for you to also ask the question back. And there almost should be this like ping pong back
Hmm.
and forth. So, tell me about a time when you've done X, Y, and Z. Well, the time when I did X, Y, and Z was ABC at, one, two, three. Is that relevant to kind of what you guys have going on right now in your business? And then
Yeah.
they're
So
talking. And then they're talking. And then you're
right.
talking. And it's,
Yeah.
if you can have a 50-50 conversation, that's much better than a 90-10. And then at the end, the hiring manager says, great, do you have any questions for me? And now you've got one or two before you got to sign off. And that's also the interviewer's fault to a fairly high degree as well. So it takes two to tango.
So one thing that I can say that I'm so fortunate to have is my co-founder, who is she's been in HR for at least 25 years. The other day I was kidding with her. I'm like, it's almost been 3 decades, and she's like, don't say that, just say 20. But it's been a long time that she's been in her field, and so she's very experienced when it comes to even like getting a feel for the candidate, making sure that we allow this to be an experience that's comfortable for them. Because to your point, we want them to show up in their fullness. We don't want them to have to perform in a way. I think that we're in some way, we're in a society that requires a little bit of performance, right? But that's to be expected, right? Whenever you're interviewing, but we want you to show up yourself because, to your point, being able to have the right culture fit, I think, is something that is so important. And getting a glimpse of what that feels and looks like once we are going through the interview process, I think, the questions and how that experience goes really does determine what that looks like in the future.
Hmm. Agreed. Agreed. Well, Dina, I'm looking forward to Snips. I know you guys have got some stuff that's going to be happening here pretty soon, and I'm looking forward to seeing how everything goes. And sounds like you're doing a great job. You're doing something that is helpful to society, not just a fun little deal, but something that could potentially save people money and really kind of put them in a much better financial position. So it's a very useful tool. And no, I appreciate you coming on the show here today. This was a great discussion, and very much appreciate your time. I look forward to the future.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. All the great work that you're doing here. I think being able to give a perspective from all different industries, all different walks of life, I think is going to be so valuable to so many businesses around the world. So thanks for all you're doing too, Taylor.
Thank you.